Hey there, tech fans. Rick here again with another gadget I think you're going to find pretty interesting. It's the Tenergy TN299 Universal Hybrid Battery Charger. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, how complicated can this be, Rick? I mean, you plug it into the wall, you slide a few batteries into it, and let it do its job. And the honest truth is, a couple of years ago that might have been true, but in recent years, the explosion of new chemistries for rechargeable batteries, plus different styles and sizes of those batteries, really make it difficult to find a single charger that'll charge all of them. And that's what really started me on this search for a universal battery charger like this, because probably like me, you've got a ton of products that you use rechargeable batteries in, and over the years you've ended up buying a bunch of different varieties of batteries, and some of the chargers you bought when you bought those batteries don't work with the newer batteries, so maybe you've got 3 or 4 chargers plugged in around the house, and I just got tired of wasting all that time and energy trying to find the right charger that matched up with the battery. So I've been on the hunt for something that did a universal charge that would work across the entire spectrum of batteries that I had, and I settled on the TN299. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure, they did send me this unit for review, but I promise that's not going to influence my opinion of the product. What happened was, I settled on this. I sent them an email and said, look, you've got a pretty cool universal charger there. Would you mind if I reviewed it on the channel? And they said, sure, we'd love to have you do that. And they sent me one to review. I said, also, I've got a lot of subscribers that may like to buy this product. Can you work with me and send me a discount code so those people can get a good discount on the product? And they were happy to do that. So if you check downstairs in the description, you'll see a discount code there that you can use. Hit the link, use that code. You'll save 20% off the sales price, but it's got a very limited time. I think it's got about a week's time. So if you're interested in this, something you need, definitely hit that link and save those dollars. All right, so enough about that. The first thing I want to talk about is what comes in the box. Then I'll explain some of the evolving standards for batteries, because you may not even be aware of it. And you may have new batteries that you've tried to charge in an older charger and they didn't work and you thought maybe the battery was bad. I'm also going to talk about some of the latest technology in batteries that really improve their use and improve their shelf life, which is really important to me, because sometimes I'll charge a battery, leave it on the shelf for a couple of weeks, go back to it, and it's down to 30% and I got to charge it again. So I'll get into that sort of at the end, but let's talk about the unboxing first. So when you tear open the box, you'll see the charger inside. It's a great little charger, really well built, and they've got a couple of cool features built into it around safety, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. In addition, you get a charger for it. This plugs into your wall, plugs into the back of the unit, and you get a full manual. Now, you may be thinking, what do I need a manual for, Rick? Again, it seems pretty simple, but there's a lot of sophistication built into this guy to sort of make sure that the batteries are charged correctly, give you good indications of how well they're charging, and a bunch of other things that are going on. So the manual's a great place to start. And if you check the manual out, it's got specifications inside about what batteries you can charge with it, what the charging currents are, how the batteries react to that charging. And on the back, they've got some advertisements for some of their other batteries you can use with it if you decide you need additional rechargeable batteries. But I like the fact that they put the manual in there, because honestly, this market is flooded with really inexpensive chargers. And the challenge is, if you buy one of those really inexpensive chargers, first off, you don't know if it's smart. There's a lot of dumb chargers out there that when you slide a battery into it, it's just going to start firing current at that battery till it's full, but it's not really checking to see how the battery's being charged. Is it healthy? Is it taking the charge correctly? It's not doing any kind of adjustments for current or voltage to that battery. So it puts you in a situation where at the very least, you could damage the battery to the point where you can't use it as long as you want. You won't get as many recharges out of it. Or worse, if that battery's damaged and there's a short, you can have all kinds of issues with the charger. This is smart enough to recognize all those different situations. It's also smart enough to recognize the type of battery chemistry you're putting in there and make adjustments for that battery chemistry. So let me talk a little bit about the different styles of batteries that you're probably going to want to charge today and how they relate to this product. Most modern rechargeable batteries are based on one of two different chemical compositions. They're either nickel-based or lithium-based. The two most popular nickel-based batteries are nickel-cadmium, or NiCd, and that's the one most people know and they've used it for years, or a brand new style of nickel-based battery, the nickel metal hydride, or NiMH. If you're using a lithium-based battery, it's typically a lithium ion, which is Li-ion, or the newer style of that battery is a lithium iron phosphate, or LiFePO4. You've probably seen that lettering on newer batteries. That latest iteration, the lithium iron phosphate, gives you a much better energy density of the battery, and it also has a longer decay, which means it'll hold its charge a lot longer. So that's a very, very popular battery. Now the good news is the Tenergy TN299 supports all 4 flavors of battery that I just described, in addition to other technologies as well. So the different battery sizes that this charger will support for the NiMH and NiCd are AAA, AA, C, D, and a 9 volt, which is unusual for most chargers. If you're using a lithium ion or a lithium iron phosphate, it'll support some of the newer batteries with even higher energy densities, the 18650, the 14500, and the 10400 all work fine in this unit. And you've got the option to change between those two different battery styles by using that switch on the front of the charger. Now that we understand a little bit more about the types of batteries that this charger can handle, I wanted to spend a few minutes and talk about the technology behind the TN299 because it's dramatically different than a lot of the chargers in the market. And even though it may look the same, the engineering teams at Tenergy have built in a ton of smarts to make this a very efficient charger and get you the longest life possible out of your rechargeable batteries. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is essentially recharging a battery and then using that battery is the exchange of electrons from the charger to the battery, then back out of the battery to the device you've plugged it into. And that seems like a pretty simple thing to manage, but a lot of the less expensive chargers don't have the smarts to really understand what type of battery they're charging. All they do is fire up and start firing electrons at a battery until the battery's full and it says, stop, don't send any more electrons my way. The Tenergy TN299 has got intelligence built into it, so each one of the slots where you slide a battery into it, the charger immediately will check that battery to make sure, number one, that the battery's not bad. Then it'll identify the type of battery, both the chemical composition and the size of the battery, and it adjusts individually for all 4 slots the charging cycle for that battery, which means if a battery's less charged than another battery in the slot next to it, it's going to charge those at different rates. It's going to put different current against those batteries to bring them up safely to a full charge. That's super important, not only because it guarantees you're not going to waste energy in your home, because if you have a charger that just starts firing electrons at a battery, you're wasting energy because it's throwing more current than it needs to at that battery initially. But more importantly, the batteries themselves have to be charged politely. And what I mean by that is by understanding exactly how much of a charge a battery still needs and a charger taking that into account and bringing that charge up as efficiently as possible, it means you're going to get a lot more charge cycles out of those batteries. Now, an alkaline battery, it's got a lot of power when you take it out of the box and use it in a particular product, but when it's done, you throw it out. With rechargeable batteries, with a smart charger like this, you could get 500 recharge cycles out of it. So just do the math in your head there a second about what that alkaline battery costs you and what it saves you by charging the battery 500 times. If you get a charger that's not sophisticated and doesn't understand how to charge the battery, it can actually damage that battery a little bit every time it charges it, to instead of getting 500 recharges, maybe you get 300, which does seem like a lot of recharges, but it's still half of what you'd get if you had a smarter charger like this doing the work for you. So the guys from Tenergy have not only taken care of how they charge the battery, but more importantly, they're looking for all kinds of error conditions. So if you've got overcurrent, maybe a battery's been damaged, you didn't notice it, you put it in here and it starts drawing too much current, it'll turn off that particular port so it won't charge that battery. If you've got a dead battery, comes up on the display and tells you the battery's bad. At that point, something's happened, you can't recharge the battery, discard that battery safely. It'll also protect you against short circuits. Now, I like the fact that it's got a cover on the top here that protects this from things falling inside of it, but it also checks that when you connect up a battery, that it's not a dead battery that's a dead short battery that's going to cause damage to the charger. If something inadvertently falls inside and shorts out some of those connections, it's got protection built against that. So I feel very confident having this on my bench or in my kitchen or in my office where I charge a lot of my batteries and not having to worry about sliding a battery in and making sure it's smart enough to actually charge that battery safely and efficiently, but more importantly, maintain the life of that battery over the long term, because rechargeable batteries are not cheap, and buying the battery once and being able to use it 400 times as opposed to 200 times is a real value saving for me. So I like that an awful lot. Now stay tuned and I'm getting a little closer to it, show you some of the features of it and show you exactly how it charges. Now we'll take a little closer look at the unit itself. And as I mentioned earlier, it's got a cover over the battery compartment to protect that area underneath, the charging area, from debris falling down inside there, or dust or other things that might get down in there and contaminate those contacts. Because over time, if those contacts get dirty, they won't do as good a job at charging. So it's nice they've got a cover on the top of it. You open the cover by hitting that button. On the right-hand side, you've got an LED display up here that gives you a real good indication of how the batteries are at present, how they're charging, and if there's a bad battery, it'll identify that and say bad battery, so you know you've got a defective one and down inside there. It's also smart enough to actually tell you what the chemistry composition of the battery is, so it'll light up here and let you know which flavor of battery you happen to be charging underneath. Now the cabinet is made out of high-impact ABS plastic. They did a nice job picking this white color and adding some design elements to make it look, I guess, a little less utilitarian than most of these chargers that tend to be just big black bricks of things that sit on your counter. This would be completely comfortable on your kitchen counter or in your office, pretty much fit with any decor. On the bottom of the unit, you've got a chart that details exactly what batteries can be charged in there. their approximate capacity, and the charging times, again, based on their discharge at present. But I like this kind of stuff. I'm a nerd. I like to know that this type of battery has this many milliampere hours of capacity and how long it'll roughly take me to charge it. On the bottom side over here, you'll notice venting. That venting's important because the printed circuit board inside that actually controls the charging and makes all the determinations about what voltage and current to send to the batteries, that gets warm when it's working, and the batteries will actually get warm as well when they're being charged. So having a way for that internal heat to escape is really a good thing, because over time that little bit of heat could damage a printed circuit board and may affect the longevity of the battery. So I like the fact that they built the vents in the back to let that heat out. And then you've got one extra connection here, and that's where you actually plug it into the wall charger, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So let me open it up and take a look inside. If we look inside the battery compartment, you'll notice there are 4 slots for the batteries. And again, there's no rhyme or reason of where the batteries fit. You can put them in any slot down there. It'll immediately start charging. You've got spring-loaded fingers down the bottom here to adjust for whatever size battery you're putting in. You'll also notice on the top, this is a small detail, but it's important, there are ribs along that entire back section. And the reason that's important is because different size batteries will have this nub at different spaces, and you don't want to have to fish around in there to make sure you line the battery up. They really thought of everything. So when you drop the battery in, it makes immediate contact to one of those ribs in the back and starts charging, and that's really nice. In addition to that, you've got the 2 9-volts that I'd mentioned. You can put 2 9-volt batteries in there. They'll stand up between the other batteries and start charging. Now to turn this guy on, you basically are going to plug that power supply into the back. Let me do that now. Now, the minute I plug this thing in, you're going to notice that the LED display in the front comes on. So see that blue light just came on? What that's doing is the charger's actually going through what's called a power on self-test to make sure that there aren't any batteries in there. If there was a battery in there, it would immediately look at that battery like I'd mentioned earlier in the clip and determine what kind of battery it was, how far discharged it was, and what kind of charge it needed to get it back up to the right levels of charging. So let me insert one of the batteries here. We'll put the little guy in there. Immediately determines what kind of battery it is. You can see that it's a nickel metal hydride battery, and it's charging. Now what's interesting here is when it strobes, it's going to go up showing you it's charged, but when it drops back down, that's the current charging level of the battery. So just right away, I immediately know that it's about halfway charged. Let me put a little larger battery in the middle, and again, boom, it comes right up. Another big one. And then finally, one more small one on the end. And you can mix these in there any way you want, and you'll see that I just drop them in, and they find their home position. They immediately start charging, and everything is good to go. Now, I can close the top and let these guys charge. Normally, I would close the top because I don't want, again, dust and debris and other things getting inside there, but it's very easy to add these batteries, pull them out, and as these finish their charge, you can see they're all about the same charging level now. But once they fully charge, I can pull this out and pop another one in there while the others are still charging. So it's a great utility to have to be able to use this thing and not have to worry about turning it off before I pull batteries out or add additional batteries to it. They've really just done a great job with the design. In this last section, I just wanted to spend a minute and talk about the current state of battery technology, because if you need to purchase new rechargeable batteries, it's important to understand what the latest technology can provide. So I'd mentioned before that there are nickel-based batteries like the nickel-cadmium, which is the NiCad battery. The other generation of nickel batteries are the nickel metal hydride batteries, which are the latest and greatest technology. What's different about these new NiMH batteries is that they have a longer shelf life. So for example, this one from Tenergy, once you charge this, after 60 days, it still has about 90% of its charge. And after 6 months, it's got about 80% of its charge. So if you charge the battery, put them away for a while before you use them, you're definitely going to want to go with the NiMH batteries. The other thing you want to look for is something called low self-discharge rate. And what that means is that the technology inside the battery, the barrier between the chemicals that actually make up the composition of the battery, is a lot better quality, which means the decay in the battery or its ability to hang on to the charge for a long period of time is greater in those low self-discharge batteries. And again, the Tenergy people are really on top of not only the chargers, but their battery technology. So you couldn't go wrong purchasing a Tenergy battery, but there's a lot of companies out there that make them. I just want you to be aware of what the latest technology is. So that's pretty much it for today. I hope you found this clip helpful. I know I spent a lot of time talking about something as simple as a battery charger, but when I find something interesting that I'm using, I like to put a clip together and explain why I bought it, why I think it's important, and why you guys might want to consider it. So if you have any questions on anything I've covered, drop them in the comments below. I promise to get back to you as quickly as I can. And also look down below in the description for that code that I'd mentioned before. It's only available for 7 days, so if you want to get the charger and some extra batteries, you can use that code and take 20% off the price. So it's a pretty good deal. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks again so much for watching, and until next time, happy tech.